Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us in such great numbers. For today's discussion, co-organized by the Strategeo Institute and the Anglo-American University. My name is Veselin Vačkov, and I have the honor of serving as the director of Strategeo. Tonight we come together for a very timely discussion on the future of Ukraine, almost exactly 3 years since Russia launched its full-scale invasion. Over these years, the Ukrainian army and the whole Ukrainian people have demonstrated extraordinary resolve, heroism in defending their country, an unparalleled display of courage in today's world. As we gather here, the world watches with both anticipation and, I would say, concerns, seeking to understand the implications of the shifts in the US foreign policy following the second inauguration of President Trump. These changes reach far beyond Ukraine's borders, influencing political and economic dynamics on global scale, and especially in Europe. Before I pass the microphone to Jan Macháček, the president and founder of Strategeo, who will moderate tonight's discussion, to introduce our distinguished panel, I would like to extend a special welcome to the Ukrainian students from the Anglo-American University. The university has generously provided, if I'm right, 19 scholarships to support them, and we are truly honored by their presence here. So welcome everyone, thank you once again, and Jan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Veselin, and thanks all of you for coming. And I have to apologize first to two speakers. Unfortunately, those who are quite important, but you know that current situation is quite dramatic and changing every moment. So Tomáš Pojar had to apologize. He has some emergency stuff. But unfortunately, 10 minutes ago, we received a message from Ambassador Zvarich that some upper force came into it, and he really apologizes that he cannot attend. So we have a bad luck, but on the other hand, we have a good luck that all of you are here and hopefully will enjoy the discussion. So next to me is not Mr. Zvarich, but Dean of Anglo-American University, Mr. Schwarz, with a special Ukrainian shirt, and Veselin already mentioned that AAU is sponsoring Ukrainian students here generously. So he was willing to sit here in the last moment. Next to him, there is Tomáš Kopečný. He is a special ambassador of Czech government, special envoy for the reconstruction of Ukraine. Welcome, Tomáš.
Thank you. Thank you.
We have Daryna Semergei, Ukrainian student here at Anglo-American University, and
thank you.
And Petr Krogman, who is an entrepreneur, and he is active in Ukrainian agriculture market, and also president of Czech-Ukrainian Trade Chamber. So welcome, Petr.
Thank you. Good evening.
So I already was participating today in some discussions, and as you imagine, these days everything is every discussion is turning into a discussion about U.S. president and his policies in Ukraine. So we will definitely touch it, but we should at least attempt to not to have it like the number one question from the very beginning. But let me make a little summary what was to be expected 3 years ago. Major Western intelligence services were warning publicly that Russia would attack Ukraine. Most of the other elites or whatever, journalists, politicians were not taking it really seriously, so we were all taken by surprise 3 years ago. But somehow everybody says these days that people didn't believe that Ukraine would resist more than a few days or a few weeks, which seems to me a little bit, everyone says it these days. I myself, by the way, was convinced that if Russians somehow make it into Kiev and take over the headquarters of the government, they would face very tough partisan war, which will make it impossible sooner or later for them to occupy the country and leave at some point. So it's not that I expected the defeat. I myself, for instance, expected very courageous partisan-like resistance, but I didn't expect the situation that Russia would attack Ukraine through such a wide front, and it's going to be actually a clash of two powerful militaries. So that's one point. We are very we all admire Ukraine resistance and heroism, and but it is on the other hand more or less clear that there is gonna be some kind of a diplomatic solution to the situation today, and the question is if Ukraine will become a member of NATO, it will become a member of EU, at least the western parts of it. The question is if there is a peace, some kind of a peace deal, is it going to be a ceasefire, or is it going to be some grandiose peace agreement? So that's another question. If there is a ceasefire or grandiose peace agreement, who will provide the security guarantees for Ukraine, security backstop for Ukraine, if there will be any? And last but not least, we have a new situation in many respects, as I mentioned at the beginning, that new American President Donald Trump is calling Ukrainian President Zelensky a dictator, but he is avoiding to call Mr. Putin a dictator. And he said also other things, but as I said at the beginning, I hope that this evening will not be a debate about Trump or debate about Trump only, as it turns out to be as usual. So that's enough for the beginning, and since we will, I should also add that if we have Mr. Kopečný, we will definitely have to speak about economic reconstruction, possible economic reconstruction of Ukraine after the war, if there is an end of the war. And since Tomáš Kopečný is the only representative finally of the Czech government being here at this debate, I would ask him for his opening remarks.
Thank you, Honzo. It's a great honor and pleasure to be here among all of you. Full house, not only behind this table, but more importantly, in your ranks. So it's a great responsibility also to meet all your expectations. I'm very much looking forward to the debate that should follow. Very briefly, yes, we made an impact as Czechia that was unexpected in the past 3 years. Before being appointed to this position, governmental envoy for Ukraine, I was responsible for military deliveries of everything we were sending to Ukraine as Deputy Minister of Defense of the Czech Republic. And over the years, we have found one thing that we initially didn't believe in very much, that's agency. that we are able to deliver something as, say, medium-sized or in our minds, small country. Not only the first main battle tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, howitzers, MLRS, or battle helicopters, which we all did as the first country in the world to Ukraine, but more importantly also numbers that mattered. Last year there was this global media say notice of this country through the Czech Ammunition Initiative. It was after a long time that the name of this country appeared in global media, in the headlines, in positive terms, mostly. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and it's something that we, as I mentioned, surprised first of all us, as the professionals, as even the Czech public. It made a lot of people proud, and that's a thing that I believe is very important. Also for the future, because whatever happens with this government, the next government, with whatever is happening over the ocean in the US and DC, I believe the story of this country has shown not only leadership, but also something that is very important for the ongoing struggle for freedom and survival of not only the Ukrainian people, but also the freedom of Europe as such, because it is in peril. Of course it is. Much more than it has ever been over the past 30 years. Now, the story or the lesson learned of what we were doing is not the story of a great government, not a story of a great state representatives, even though it helped. But it's a story of a country, of a nation that mobilized and that started doing the most important things in the first months of the invasion. So this is a commemorative event, so let me commemorate. It was the people of this country, the families that accommodated more than 50% of the Ukrainian refugees, who were in numbers of more than 500,000. So imagine 250,000 people housed in private homes of the Czech citizens. It's important to remember that, especially with the debates of the fatigue and everything, with the electoral campaign, not only in this country, but all over Europe. This is the story of this society that helped their brothers and sisters in need. The second part of the story, the first big weapons, the first big deliveries were not actually from the stockpiles of the Czech military, but were bought from the fundraising by Czech people. Not only Czechs, of course, 97% were donated from Czechia, but it was the story of people gathering their own resources. And yes, there was an element that was capable of buying something that no normal citizen can, which is like a main battle tank or something. Yeah, you can't really do that very easily. But yeah, there was a functioning, say, conjuncture of the Czech society and of the Czech state, or the, say, bureaucrats behind it. And the third is something that is also very important to remember. That's the humanitarian assistance. That's the big heart that we see not fading. When I'm getting questions about fatigue or, you know, decreased attention, we don't see it in the numbers, really. You know, when I compare years 23 and 24 in terms of public donations, fundraising by the people in this country, we're talking about billions of Czech crowns, hundreds of millions of euros or dollars. It increased. It was bigger in 24 than in 23. We're talking about high hundreds of millions of euro that were donated by ordinary Czech citizens. So that is something that I believe changing the identity of a nation for a longer term. Now, if I turn around the mirror and look into Ukraine at what the impact was when I'm meeting with my friends, counterparts, colleagues from all over the country, not only in Kiev, and mostly not in Kiev. It's a story that I feel will be deeply appreciated by this generation, but maybe generations to go, because in every business meeting I'm having with the Czech companies with whom I go to Kharkiv, Dnipro, to the small towns in all these eastern regions, but also in the west of Ukraine, yes, we do discuss the technical specifications of the needs of the cogeneration units, of the reconstruction of the energy infrastructure in their cities and towns, of the water treatment plants they need, of the hospitals they need renovations after barbaric Russian attacks. But it always starts with a big thank you from their part, an emotional statement. That has nothing to do with business, and it is still there. So whatever happens, this is something that has already made its impact in the minds and hearts of the people. Still, it's not something that will nurture us for decades to come in terms of the practical deliverables, but it's something that is as a normative anchor, not only in the relations between the country, but mostly among the peoples. And this, I believe, is really crucial, because in the public media and public space, you will hear, and you have heard, a lot of even electoral discussions about, is the support too much? Didn't we give too much? Honestly, no. This state, this government, has benefited from the assistance, as have many others, And just briefly, because that's what I dedicated the introductory speech, but I will just briefly say, yes, the story of the reconstruction of Ukraine will be about it being beneficial to those who will provide it. I mean, the story of any reconstruction after any conflict is about loans and not grants. It's about things that you will have to pay back and not gifts. German Marshall Fund is still operational. It's a fund that was established for the Marshall Plan, for the reconstruction of Europe after the Second World War. And, it's still active with the same money that the United States sent to it in the 1940s. And you know why? Because it keeps coming back, because it's a loan. And if you return the money you got as a loan, you can invest it again and again and again. And this is the principle that EU is focusing on. Yes, there was budgetary support, maybe the last one, but all the program financing is about this. It's about guarantees. This might be technical for many of you, but the story of reconstruction, if you're interested in it, learn the word guarantees, learn the word export insurance and grants. Grants was the story of 22. There was gifts, donations. Export insurance, that's a standard tool, financial tool, that will be there. Most important, though, will be the guarantees, because in common sense language, guarantee is a financial instrument that is provided by banks. And this financial instrument makes money cheaper, makes the loans cheaper, because the interest rate you get as a mayor of Kharkiv, if you want to buy a Czech product, normally from a Ukrainian bank is 18%. But if you get a guarantee from a European Investment Bank or Czech National Development Bank, it's only 8%. So the money is cheaper. And this is, technical as it sounds, the story of the reconstruction of Ukraine. It's what, by the way, also the Americans are now pushing forward with, yes, a very unfortunate form, a very brutal, aggressive rhetorics. But in essence, it's this same principle that it will be money that will be invested into a fund that will then be used only by American companies for the reconstruction of Ukraine. And the initial money will be that money that will come from the benefits from the coal or rare earth minerals or natural resources gains from the concessions. Yeah, so that's an introduction, a bit normative, a bit technical, but let's look where the discussion will lead us.
It's your job to direct it this way about economic assistance and post-war reconstruction. So thanks for this introduction. Later on, I will have more specific questions about these agreements. But I would like to ask Petr Krogman now for his introductory remarks. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So from the very beginning, I also accommodated Ukrainians, 10 Ukrainians, 5 kids, 4 mothers and 1 grandmother on, it was in March, it was not in the first days, it was 2 weeks after the war, when they packed everything and moved to Moravia, from where I come from. I accommodated them in an old house after my parents. And it was beginning of the help to Ukraine. I trusted. I knew that Ukraine will sustain the aggression of Russia. I topped up my investment in Ukraine because I knew that it is necessary to do that. I donated money directly to Ukrainian National Bank, etc., on the army accounts. So we supported army. We fed the soldiers with food, oil, services, repair services, electricity, everything what was needed because we hold maybe 1.5% of the front line, 15 kilometers of these 1,000 kilometers belt of the frontline regions from the very north, Chernihiv, Sumy, over Kharkiv. We are in Kharkiv down to Nikolaev, Odessa. What I would say, I would slightly disagree with my friend Tomáš Kopečný. This help cannot be about deal, money for something physical, money for some assets, etc. We have to realize that Ukraine is defending us. When I saw the first topic of this discussion, that it was written, the guarantees or how to solve Ukraine. It's not about solving Ukraine. It's about solving our problem. Our, as the Czech Republic, as the Europe, it's about solving Korean, Japanese problems with one toxic state. Solving Ukraine solves nothing. They will just bypass. Rockets can fly over Ukraine, etc., etc. So it is about solving the Ukraine, and it's about solving our problems, our common problems with one toxic state. So we must realize also on the military level that Ukraine is not fighting Russia. Ukraine is fighting Soviet Union. This is those warehouses full of Soviet weapons, out of which over half is already destroyed. And this is increasing our common security. So Ukraine is doing this job for us. So we should be not only grateful, we should be able to participate financially, militarily on this, because such a small agrarian state, which is 25 times smaller than Russia, cannot sustain the pressure for a long time. Heroism is perfect, but you need money, you need industrial capacities like Europe has, and I say Europe has bigger capacities, industrial, than US, especially when combined with Korea, Japan, etc. So we are not dependent on some stupid Trump, sorry for that. We should rely on ourselves in solving this toxic state. So I touched a little bit economy, and it must be kind of regional policy. It is our periphery which should hold back Russia, and this regional policy should be, we can say, global regional policy. It sounds like nonsense, but it is actually doing, Ukraine is doing good job for all of us. So this is maybe for the beginning the main point, and we are simply buying security, and the approach of Trump is totally wrong. It is not it is not about deal or ending the war just by killing somebody from your own team. Yes, it will end, but we will suffer the consequences very shortly.
Thank you very much, Petr, and I would like to now ask Daryna for her opening remarks. Thank you.
So yeah, I'm here as a Ukrainian student and Ukrainian representative. Ukrainian army is fighting against Russian army and doing a very well job, and we are here to be a partner and cooperate with European Union to be a part of a European nation as we fully deserve. And we did a very well job over the last 3 years of being a part of the European Union, defending our freedom, and we are fighting for our European future, and we would really love for everyone to support us and to cooperate on the fight in Ukrainian freedom.
That's all. Thank you very much, and if you could.
Yes. So in 1968, when Soviet Union invaded Soviet Union and Warsaw Pact countries invaded Czechoslovakia, so I was 8 years old. And the story in 2022 was very similar, attack, unexpected in the night, invasion focused on the airport in the capital of the city. And opposite to communist Czechoslovakia, Ukraine was able to protect itself. So that is something what I really didn't expect in the first day of this invasion. So I really was sure that it would take 1, maximally 2 days. So from my point of view, the current just situation, it's a miracle. It's a real miracle. And that is also a challenge for all of us to support Ukraine, because Ukraine invested much more that is not comparable with any other country. And from this point of view, so I am pretty sure that Ukraine doesn't owe anything to anybody, because they pay their cost in real time. But I also understand what Mr. Kopečný is saying, because you need just to sell this policy of support to Ukraine, to the electorate, to the voters, and have a look on what sort of voters we have in Czech Republic, in Slovakia, with Fico just also repeating what Trump said, that Ukraine is owing $2.5 billion to Slovakia, and they would like to get back this money, despite at the beginning, so there was not such a deal. And we have just also voters in the other countries, very similar in Western Europe. So that is, so from my point of view, so it is our duty to support Ukraine, because we support and we help ourselves. So, and we just presented it also just with the Ukrainian flag on the building of the Anglo-American University. And I think that is a very important symbol in relation to the name of this university, Anglo-American University with Ukrainian flag.
Thank you very much. So I would have a few questions on the particular panelists. So starting with Tomáš, could you elaborate? It's not actually a question. I would like ask you to. Could you elaborate a little bit more on your speaking about this agreement between the U.S. and Ukraine and this special fund, in comparison what EU in reaction to it started to propose, and what's the official Czech position? Or I know that you guys are probably studying it at the moment, all the details, but could you explain it a little bit further? And is Ukraine in a position to accept such a deal? Because you are right that people are reading only headlines these days, not only about Ukraine, but maybe I understand from your little remarks you made on it that it might be a little bit more complicated than the headlines are saying. So if you could elaborate on it a little bit further, because everyone speaks about it these days.
Sure. I mean, in the age of clickbaits, you need to have emotions, of course. And the emotions is what usually the agents in international relations bring to the picture. Every student of international relations knows the basic dichotomy of what drives the international relations, the happenings. Agent, structure. What is more important? Is it the structure of the US administration, or is it the person sitting on the chair, or the chairs, the people? Of course, it's a combination. But what is more important? Now, the optimists now in Europe believe in the structure. Because the actors, the agents, bring a lot of emotions into the picture. So if we take into example the mineral deal, the rare earth mineral deal, that's full of emotions. Neo-colonial pressure. That's the headlines. Of course, it's virtually impossible for anyone to look into it, into the details, because first it was classified, then now it's declassified, but it's still confidential, or non for public disclosure. But what I can tell you is the following. First, how did it start? It was the Ukrainian delegation who came to Washington, D.C. in October 2024 that brought a document called Victory Plan. It included as one of the 5 major points this particular deal, a proposition. You will get concessions, you will get access to our mines, to whatever you need for your industries, and in return, in combination with other points, we will get some security guarantees. Now, that was the proposition. What happened then? The Trump administration looked into it, analyzed it, texted a few major US companies dealing in mining and natural resources exploitation. Got some feedback, some basic figures, which are nonsense, but as for the beginning of the discussion, doesn't matter anyway. 500 billion is nonsense. I mean, it's nonsense as the value of the resources, it's nonsense as what actually the US has provided, because it's something between 100 and 150 billion. But what happened with the proposition was, okay, let's look into it. Now, what security guarantees do you imagine? I will tell you what is a security guarantee in our world. And this is an important lesson for the whole of the world. Because in the mind of the administration, and not only the agent with all the emotions and insults, but in the administration, the structure is, security guarantee is our investment. You know, you have an American company active in your country, that's our interest. Because it's our money, it's American money, and we will not let it fall. That's the best guarantee we can give you. Now, it will turn a bit cynical later on, and I will explain why. It was, this is the conception of security for the United States that we will have to live with in the upcoming years, if not decades. Now, recall of what Donald Trump said about Greenland was not about, we need our soldiers there. It was about economic security. Not only the drilling rights, and I will probably not go into Greenland because it will turn very sour and brutal. Hopefully not as brutal as the policies of the people Donald Trump associates with and relates to as his peers or his equals. Yeah, let's not go into Greenland because it's scary. I mean, there's only 50,000 people in Greenland, and Russia did turn countries with millions of people into Russian citizens. I'm not saying anything, but just get prepared for not only buyout options for the Copenhagen government. Now, what happened with the deal was, okay, you owe us. I was like, no, we don't owe you, it was a gift. And basically, just imagine it this way. You had a great relation with someone, and he died. And his son, he's a different kind of actor. And he wants the money back. My daddy, he didn't know, you know, he was old, senile, and I want my money back because I inherited it, so give it to me. Now, if this person lives in a normal state where there is some law and there was a donation signed, no problem, but we don't have such a law in international relations, do we? No, it's a Hobbesian world, now more than ever, of brute force. Bring something to the table, hard power, not McDonald's, not Hollywood, hard power matters. So, what happened was, okay, so this is our provision of your security. We will invest in your mines, and we will take 500 billion worth of this. And then, whatever comes after it, we invest it into this fund. Now the discussion that not we're having, you asked me about like, what do we think about it? I mean, yes, I think about it. Well, you know, it's a brutal thing, but we have nothing to say about it. You know, the French, they always try to react at least to something. So when there was this AI deal in Washington, they came a few weeks later with their AI deal for Europe. Completely different and useless. Now, the minerals deal, today Stéphane Séjourné, a French commissioner in the European Commission, so he said, oh, let's make a European deal on minerals. First, where are the French mining, or the European mining companies? Just look at the realities. This is, again, very, I'm not calling it nonsense outright, but very dubious, to say the least. So what will be happening is, they will put on the table the two papers that will only differ in the figure, which will have to be paid for because of the daddy who was senile and who made some debts in the mind of the son, successor. And the rest of whatever the next hundreds of billions of dollars worth of minerals will be exploited, the rest will go into the fund that will be governed by a board of governors appointed by the US government. And I just want to say, it's not outright exploitation, it's not outright wrong. What is exploitation is to say, okay, you owe us 500 and not 150. But this is the model, and this is where Donald Trump is right. US have not been loaning money to Ukraine. They have been giving things worth of dozens of billions. The EU has also given something for the budget support, but mostly it was in the form of loan. And then all the program financing, as I was saying, the concrete projects are in the form of loans, of guarantees for loans. So it's not like a good Europe is giving the Ukrainians something. They're making, and again, I'm saying this, it's not that the Europeans don't have a good heart. It's how banks operate. Of course I want to give everything. I wanted to give everything from the military stockpile from the first day, and we almost succeeded. It took far more longer than I wanted, and it happened eventually. But the point is, you need to live in the real world of how money works, how banks work. And this is how banks work. If they get the money back, they provide a loan, as the German Marshall Fund did. So the European banks have been loaning the money so far, and they expect the return with the interest rate. Now, what is happening for anything, including the mineral deal, all the other sectors, is this is what European money is for. And it's a good thing, because this is how development assistance should work. Read Dead Aid, a book about development assistance. I have been helping selling weapons all over the world for 10 years at the Ministry of Defense, that's true, but also I've been working with development assistance. That was my second sort of hobby, because I was writing my PhD on it. Now, there is a good development assistance and there is a dead aid. Now the dead one is the one that has no follow-up, that has no sustainability. And usually that's because you just drill a well, you bring the village there, you make a family photo, and then you go. And wow, the well doesn't work in 2 years because it's not sustainable, because the local actors are not invested in it economically. And this is how it should work, because if the local actors will be paying back the money that they get as a loan, they will keep running the business, and that's how the business will be operating. So it was a long answer, but you asked for it. Yeah.
I will give you a floor, Peter, in a second. So just one little subsequent question on Tomáš. I understand it like if it is about like reconstruction of the country, but if it's connected with the security of security guarantees, it's clear to me, at least, that you cannot have only security guarantees on paper, and it also has to do with NATO. You have to have certain ethos. You have to have some projecting some values, sense of purpose. So imagine that America would send the troops to defend Ukraine after someone breaks these agreements with extracting minerals. How would you explain to your soldiers that they are fighting for some business interests only? There must be something more. Can it be based on these contracts only? Can we be so pragmatic to expect something that someone would defend another country because your country has some business interest in there?
You know, if you run a weapon business and development assistance, you start or end up in Africa. I mean, I've been dealing with projects in Africa with different partners for the past 15 years. I mean, you don't send a military, you send a private military company. You take over the mine. I will not say the details, how do you take it? You exploit it, you run a logistical center, you send it to a port, and you sell it. That's how you operate a mine, anywhere. So you don't, and plus, it's unimaginable that the US would be sending their soldiers to Ukraine. This administration has been crystal clear. In a nutshell, we will bring you peace to Europe because you're such losers, completely incompetent, and you can keep the peace if you're strong enough. It's your problem, not ours. Now, this is the optimistic version of it. The worst part is look at what has been happening yesterday and today when in the discussion between Russia and United States about the same issue. We have a negotiation about rare earth minerals deal in Ukraine, but we have the same negotiation between Russia and the United States on the same exploitation rights. So, whose soldiers are going to be protecting what? But security guarantees, to be optimistic again, words, treaties, memoranda, useless. Ukraine has been there, done that, useless, people have died, false hopes. No security treaty is worth it. Just considering it, it's not worth the paper. Nobody will come to help. Soldiers, European soldiers, yes, it will be symbolic. In terms of deterrence, it's useless. It will not deter a Russian military from attacking again if there is 50,000 or 80,000 soldiers. No. Plus, they will not be in the DMZ because of the fact of the UN peacekeeping troops having to be established by a UN mandate, which will be vetoed by Russia. But okay, even if there is 80,000 European soldiers, it's not a deterrence. The only deterrence is well-trained Ukrainian military equipped by Ukrainian defense industry and European industry, and also American defense industrial products paid by the Europeans and Ukrainians. US is done with Europe. Just, let's face it, it's hard, yes, especially for the professionals, for all the ambassadors, for all the top government officials who have been dedicating their life to get us into the structure of NATO because it will finally bring us peace, in the 90s. But US is done with us. They don't care.
Okay. Thanks. So, Petr, I have a question on you. You already want to say many things, definitely, but if you say that Ukraine is also fighting for us and defend us against Russian potential aggression in the future, so what do you say to those who say, okay, look, Putin feels like a reincarnation of Catherine the Great or Peter the Great, so he just wants to expand the territory into what Catherine the Great conquered somewhere through the territory of Ukraine. And if he has some ambitions to go further west, he would take a break for 10 years and he will have time to recover, but we also will have time to recover and we are obligated to use it. So these people say there is no danger that his ambitions are only those of Catherine the Great. But there are people perhaps like yourself who believe that we are directly threatened if he can declare himself a winner at some point.
Procrastination is so sweet. It is the best solution. I will give you an example. I've got in our headquarters in Prague also some Ukrainian managers. They were living happily in 2014, 2015 in Kyiv. And they didn't understand what is happening in Donetsk. And the financial director was describing to me how her friend came from Donetsk, whole life in 2 bags. And all Kyiv people just look at them, maybe with some understanding, but then with some anger, because they were parking not properly in Kyiv. They knew what is on the car plate written, the abbreviation for Donetsk. They didn't have so much money, sometimes didn't pay rent. So it was like we now observe in Prague, Czechia, the hate, the simple, stupid hate against Ukrainians. And what the financial director told me at the end was, hey, when the rockets were not falling on Kyiv, it was so distant for me. It was so unimaginable for me. And I even didn't want to imagine the cruelty, what's happening there. So we are now in the same situation, just 3, 4, 5 years to come, and we will see. So this is the answer for these people. It is reality. Putin, and not only Putin, the whole Russia is psychopathic. So it does not have the experience like Europeans have, or smaller countries which must make compromises. They live in a different style of deals. Either I will defeat you and you will be my slave, or you will defeat me. So this is not about compromise in their minds. And if I can react on Tomáš, Tomáš is diplomat, but in business he is much harder than me. I'm idealistic entrepreneur. So I would say first reaction to this European activity. I wrote it already a week ago in my interview on Seznam that it must be fair to all countries who help Ukraine. US is not special. There is Europe, even with bigger share of the help. There is Australia, Canada, Japan, etc., Korea, many states. So these all should have right to cooperate with Ukrainians, to get concessions on minerals. It must be fair. There is always many conditions. Maybe I would think as a businessman with the minerals in occupied regions, I would give better shares to those who are willing to go there. It will be success fee. So get these minerals out of Russia. And it is really important, not only for Europe, also for other countries, which are not so mineral rich, because for Russia, grabbing Ukrainian minerals means get 2% more, 3% more, but Europe and others will lose 50% or 30%. So it is asymmetric, and these countries must really work on in accord, in coordination, and maybe in ideal solution, it will help better deal for Ukraine. At least Ukraine will not be looted, which is the danger now. If you will let it to egomaniac from some state, it is problematic. So this is to these minerals. Second, to the banks. You cannot let, and one personal remark, Mr. Schwarz will not remember me, but I'm one of his students from a macroeconomic course, 91, 92, these years. And he taught us about public goods, negative, positive externalities, and the role of state. The market cannot solve everything. The market is too cruel. And I will tell you example how the market works now in Ukraine. Ukraine now is has predatory economics nowadays because the role of state is so small, is so weak. The state has not money for any regional policy or similar. So when with the European guarantees, the banks come to Ukraine and they offer loans, they all end up in Western Ukraine. Nothing, almost nothing goes to Eastern Ukraine, to these parts which bear the biggest burden. All money go to the easiest regions where you get the highest profits, which are profitable, which are safe. While, on the other hand, what we need? We need firm shield, strong security shield in the eastern Ukraine. Otherwise, eastern Ukraine will be lost. New periphery will be the western Ukraine. After western Ukraine is lost, Slovakia, Czech Republic, etc. will be the new peripheries. So we must help really handicapped regions. And it is not about market principles, cannot be. First, the state must even equalize level the conditions, and then we can let it on the market. Yes, market is better. Companies are always better entrepreneurs than the state. State is usually catastrophe. But the conditions, rule of law, etc., compensations must be done by the state. And for the Eastern Ukraine, it is not about loan. Try to offer a loan to somebody who is losing money because the Russians are destroying his fields, his factory. His people cannot sleep during the night, cannot sleep 10 kilometers from the front line, must go 30 kilometers and daily there and back. And the infrastructure is destroyed. You are looking for a nearest bridge to cross the river. The railway is not working. So this is terrible costs of these frontline regions, which must be compensated. Otherwise, the economic life there will collapse. And it is already collapsing. In the year 23, the agriculture production collapsed by 40% in these regions, and it is the only, actually almost only activity which remained there, because industry was relocated, services also went away, and this is the last branch of economy which is holding and creating working places there. So this is the role of state which I do not observe, and it is destroying the cohesion, stability of Ukraine. It's destabilizing the Ukraine, and the East is sinking, and it will be maybe one of the causes why Ukraine will lose this war. So this is commenting the banks. And when Tomáš talked about the deals, you can do the deal, contract, guarantee something in a environment which is fair, which is based on rules, where the rule of law is functioning. You cannot make deal or contracts with Putin. I think many US companies were already in the US and they have lost all their assets. We've got already this experience. It is stupid to invest in Russia again. Sorry, but it is like this. And those companies who are still remaining in Russia are either boneless, or how to say it, without any principles, not boneless, spineless, maybe. Yes, boneless organism can change much better. So this is naive to go there. You can sign a contract. Contract is about what? Agreement. Both parties limit themselves. I give something to you, or promise you, you promise me, give something to me. The this would be big victory of Putin. Putin is much wiser, much more intelligent than we are. So we, in any contract, limit ourselves stupidly, and he is laughing at us. Any of those politicians who are here are used to live in the world where they cannot lie normally, because if they lie, they are forgotten, they have to resign. Russia, the normal style of Russia is to lie, to accuse you of those things what they are themselves doing. This is the Russian style of thinking. They are they are like chess players, 30 moves ahead of Trump. They are playing easily with him. So concerning this man, we should read all less news and more concentrate on reality, etc. So it is naive to think that we can make a contract. He didn't escape with his mind from the US, where he is living in the environment which enables him to live or parasite on the system. But if you have so many non-systematic people on the system will break down and we will be eaten by these dictatorships. And last point, it was mentioned that US soldiers in Ukraine are not imaginable. It will happen in the end. In the end, Ukraine will even have nuclear weapons. It will be the normal reaction. There were so many things during the last 3 years which I was told it is impossible. We did it ourselves, or we have observed that, we helped that with that. So it is, let's not limit ourselves, let's have everything on the table, otherwise we will lose all deals or like this. With Putin, you cannot go into dealing with compromise, because what will happen? The result will be between the compromise and the counterparty wish, and we cannot afford this.
Okay, thank you. So, as he said himself about Zelensky, Mr. Trump, that he is only thing he is good at, that he was playing Biden like a violin. So maybe someone is playing him like a violin, like maybe Putin or Russia, but we'll see. So also what you said, like about these American companies, Lenin used to say that the capitalists would sell us the rope on which we will hang them. So that's another. Daryna, so what's? I have a question. How much important for people like you living here, studying here, is that people show support to Ukraine with Ukrainian flags and pictures of Ukrainian flags on their social networks profiles, with all these like moral support or expressing the moral support? Some people would say it's virtue signaling. And how much important is for Ukrainian to demonstrate some material support? It can be a big one, like a Czech munition initiative mentioned, but it can be a small one, like provided by AAU for Ukrainian students. So how do you differentiate between these, like displaying the support with a flag and something material which is needed? Or are we good in doing both, or what's your take on this?
Let's start semi-chronologically. Moral support is extremely important, especially since the media, and let's be quite frank, Russian propaganda is highlighting that Europeans are tired of war, that Ukraine will be alone, that no one will showcase any support. So seeing support from ordinary citizens who sometimes don't have financial means to support, so their vocal support is the only thing they can contribute, and seeing them contributing it over 3 years on a daily basis is extremely important and extremely valuable, and I'm sure that every Ukrainian citizen values it so much and is extremely grateful for it. So yeah, Czech Republic is amazing. I never expected for the support to continue for 3 years, to continue on this level. This is simply amazing, and we're super grateful. We are also very grateful for the help of the Czech government, for the Czech initiatives, for the support of our army. The ammunition Czech initiative has been extremely helpful and supported Ukraine at one of the hardest times where we had nothing, frankly, to shoot at the front lines. But Czech Republic came through and created something that still is probably one of the best and most functional initiatives that is still working. And as for the support of our university, we're also very grateful. We are supported on a continuous basis with all of the issues. They're always there, supported us, always asked about our families if we need some additional support. So we're very, very grateful. Thank you.
So, Jiří, some remarks?
So I was thinking in the past, and these ideas came to me from 90s, when I had opportunity to discuss with Anatoly Chubais, the father of Russian oligarchs, to discuss with him the role of oligarchs in the society. And the role of oligarchs was important in Russia and was also important in Ukraine, but completely differently. In Russia, the oligarchs in the 90s, they were considered as a tool for decentralization of the country and also democratization and as a tool of political competition, because the different parts of Russia were run by different oligarchs and with different opinion and approaches. And it was considered also by this Verkhovka, by the Russian president, at a certain time, it was considered to be extremely dangerous. And there was a Putin's attack on oligarchs, the case of Khodorkovsky and other cases. What was the role of oligarchs in Ukraine? Completely different. Ukraine, with a different political structure, not ideal democratic, but still democratic. Still democratic. And oligarchs in Ukraine, they didn't allow to build something like deep state, and the state was always very weak, very weak. So Ukraine was decentralized country. The top was really poor in governance, and it was difficult to promote rules, to promote just rules of democratic society. And that was also very strong criticism from Czech Republic, why we shall support the most corrupted country in Europe. And so I am quite afraid that we have to admit that Ukraine just belongs to the most corrupted countries in Europe. But now it is not important anymore. Yes, so this, but the role of oligarchs in Russia in the certain period was positive. Just if we are talking about decentralization and democracy, and Russia needs something like decentralization. Yeah, because Russia, decentralized Russia, wouldn't be just such dangerous for the rest of the world. But in Ukraine, the role of oligarchs, so I am pretty sure, was negative in the whole period.
Thanks.
If I may react to this, because this is very important, you know, when you're dealing, when you're trying to help with Ukraine, you keep getting this question, oh, corruption, corruption, corruption. Did you experience it? How bad it is? How bad is it? But there is precisely this structure of economy that is hugely misunderstood or unknown. And why would it be known? Like, do we know the structure of economy in any other country? And the crucial aspect of the different structure of the economy is precisely based on this decentralized economy that brings a lot of gray economy aspects, which is not the same thing as corruption as we imagine it, as we understand it. But by definition, if you have most of the financial streams in a country not running through the central system or overseen by the central system, then it depends on the definition of how you conceive it. Yes, it could be corruption because it doesn't go through the central tax system, but it's how the country has been working on economically in this decentralized way since its recreation in 1991. And it's a gray economy aspect, not corruption per se. And it's a tough discussion because then the answer is, yeah, but look at the corruption index, number 112. So, yeah, but I know I don't expect anyone.
Shadow economy.
It's shadow economy, but I don't expect anyone to, or almost anyone to really look into it that deeply. It just sort of makes better sense when you look into this from this macroeconomic perspective.
Yes.
So just reflecting on what was said, I think corruption is extremely discussed in Ukraine, and we have anti-corruption committees, and we are working on beating corruption. And I think most of the Ukrainian citizens believe in beating the corruption because everyone is affected. And yes, Ukrainian oligarchs they do influence the corruption, but I do believe in argument is very different than in Russia. And I think mostly because of the historical background, because when country let's say fully formed, which is historically inaccurate, in 1991, Ukraine already wanted freedom. We already wanted democracy. We already wanted to be free nation. When with Russia, let's be honest, it's empires that take different forms. It's empires, and it was Soviet Union, and it's still Soviet Union. So arguably, the oligarchs in Russia, they're still a part of so-called imperial court. If that could be worked in this way, they are part of president. While Ukrainian oligarchs, they are trying to get them the best business deal, morally gray, morally wrong. This is hard to say.
But they are the local hegemons.
Fair enough.
Just shortly, the war is good tool for de-oligarchization of Ukraine, and it is happening in life.
Now, some people are afraid of the Russification and oligarchization of the United States, but that's a different topic. But so now it's a good time to open it for discussion and to respond to your questions. So if you could please introduce yourself and tell us on which panelist you are heading your question. So I ask really for questions, not for lectures. So who wants to ask?
Milena Burková, Vice President of the Confederation of Industry. 2 questions, one for Daryna. You said that you are very grateful for what Europe Czech government is providing to Ukraine. I would like to hear what we are not doing enough, what we should do more, and what help is lacking. And then for the panelists, you were talking about supporting Ukraine, but the situation has changed. We are talking about Europe's survival. So what we should do, what Europe should do now is this absolutely different context, because it's not fight for Ukraine, it's real fight for European projects.
So, while Czech Republic is doing amazing military help for Ukraine, we can always use more. And of course, we are talking not only about giving Ukraine military aid and giving financing for it, but as Ukrainian military complex openly stated, we are here for cooperation. Ukrainian military complex is successfully making 55% of weapons used in Ukraine. So we are very open to military cooperation right now and in the future. As for the society, I still think, this is my personal opinion, that a lot of Ukrainians struggle to integrate into the Czech society. While there are a lot of resources available, I think there should be and there could be some improvements and the ways to do it better to ensure a safe, open space for everybody.
Thank you very much.
What we should do concerning our survival of our Europe. We should trade security for money. The Ukrainians can do that. They demonstrated that they are one of the few nations which are capable of fighting in Europe. I cannot imagine Czech army to fight with those 25,000 soldiers we have. How many are capable to go into real fight? Maybe special units, hundreds of guys, hundreds of boys. So I'm really afraid about of the future of Europe. The Ukraine joining EU is not favor for Ukraine. It would be favor for you, for us. It would help with our security. Based on this, we would be much militarily stronger, and this would be the only solution for our sustainable future. And it is not only by getting 1 million new soldiers and a market of 40 million people and resources, minerals, etc. It is also preventing these to get into Russian hands. Because if one family tells you, we do not want you, and the other family says, we are really interested in you, and Russia is clearly telling that to Ukraine, even though Russia will enslave Ukraine. But what will happen? They will get the sources of Ukraine, the territory of Ukraine, the people, the soldiers of Ukraine. And like they are doing that now with the occupied territories, they are already sending Ukrainians against Ukrainians. And if we want those 1 million soldiers, not only 1 million, there are 10 million men capable of fighting. If we want to use them and against Europe, it will happen. And the brainwashing is pretty quick. It will be in 1-2 years. We had many of our farmers in occupied territory only for 7 months. And it was already dangerous. So it is the biggest threat, and we should compete very quickly to get this and not to procrastinate again.
Okay, so what we should do for Europe, support Ukraine. It's very easily said. Not only in the normative sense, but in the new reality of this transatlantic bond being, at least for the meantime, frozen. And by what? By weapons, by incentivizing the production of Ukraine defense industry. It's the Danish model, it works. More countries should be joining in this. What we should do is also understand that yes, we are a rich continent. You know, it has been our excuse when dealing with the threat of Russia. Look at their economy. It's like GDP like Italy, so no threat. But I mean, the spending itself on defense is like only half of the total of Europe, even though it's like 10 times less on the GDP. It's not what matters. The measurement needs to be done in real capabilities, not in the defense spending itself even, in real capabilities. Number of soldiers, number of weapon systems, number of brigades, number of capabilities in all these domains. Are we gonna able to do it immediately without the US? In some aspects, definitely not. In most of the aspects, yes. I mean, this is a super rich continent. This is a super rich continent that will not operate it on a basis of NATO, that will not operate the defense of Europe on the basis of EU. But the most important event of this year has happened. That's German elections. For Europe, I mean. And it has happened in a way that I see high hopes for the future of Europe. With Friedrich Merz as Chancellor, this is the best what we could ask for. I mean, we want strong, militarily super strong Germany, having an active leadership role in Europe, coming, of course, from a country that was occupied by them in like 5 generations ago. I know it's free, but still, who cares? We want super strong, militarized Germany. And with this in mind, we want them not only to have a super strong military themselves, but super strong defense industry. We want them to militarize their automotive industry, and we're going to do the same if it comes to further deterioration of the security in Europe. And this is the chance for Europe. This is what we could do and what we shall do. And then, you know, this is what will prevent the next big war in Europe.
Thank you. So one little remark which is connected to Milan's question. Isn't it a little bit suspicious, maybe Jiří could respond it, that Putin suddenly is welcoming the idea that Ukraine should become the member of the EU, so which is apparent why he says it, that he is fine with it, because it's apparently a trap, because he knows that we would not be able to accept them anytime soon, and it will be a cause of inner fights, and Poland will be against the most strongly. So,
yeah. So it's difficult question even for me. So it's quite difficult for me to forecast it, but just to have some remark. So I think that just the revision of the global order, at least the European Atlantic order after World War II, that is something what really is now on agenda. What is important, and that will be a positive aspect of Trump's behavior, that we start to think more as Europeans. Because just to continue thinking as Czechs, Slovaks, so it looks like so we are too small for affecting anything. And Europe now becomes quite understandable entity for us. That is, it starts to be understandable with just protecting Schengen, just free of move, just within this territory. That are quite material values, well understandable for people to protect them and to pay for them and to vote for them. So that is positive what we should take from the current situation, and I am pretty sure that with Germany, Germany, it's a hope, it's a real hope for us, and that we'll just take this opportunity and we will use it in positive way.
Some people are even looking forward for Germany to have a nuclear bomb or something, and so what about if AfD takes power or something? But sorry for a stupid joke, but we have a gentleman in the back who wants to ask a question already with microphone.
Jakub Weimann, Confederation of Czech Industry. You mentioned that Ukraine cannot be part of the European Union right now. So can you please give me the information what from the political and diplomatical, let's say, side should be the argument why Ukraine can really go into the EU and can be part of EU?
Only government representative here is Tomáš, but I will a little bit interrupt my role as a moderator. So I think the most important is to ask Poles, for instance, about according to the polls in Poland, Poles are not in a good mood to have Ukrainians inside, but that's my little remark, sorry.
I strongly believe that Ukraine is on a European path by not hopes or beliefs, but just by the standard technical procedures that have been happening over the past 3 years. They have been completing one negotiation chapter after another quite successfully. It's not frozen, as opposed to, you know, the discussion about NATO. So the EU path is as vivid as it was since the beginning of the full-scale invasion. It's a fast track that is still in this special line that is envied by the people in economy from the Western Balkans, you know. But, you know, eventually they will get all of them will get there. The important thing is that nothing has changed. And when we're in this sorrow, shock, anxiety, whatever about the US not feeling so great about Europe again, doesn't matter, honestly. I mean, our GDP is big. We have our own identity. And as J.D. Vance so abruptly pointed out, our values are very different now. I'm fine with it. It's fine. The very definition of freedom is very different on our continents. That's fine. Okay. Let's sink it in. And let's just work more on our prosperity in Europe as Europeans. And it's fine. So what happens with Ukraine is a European path, not an American path. I mean, when I go around Ukraine, so in these emotional moments, what I hear is that all this blood is being sacrificed also for the European dream. Yeah. Never have I heard about a transatlantic dream or NATO dream or a North American dream. This is a strong thing. On the opposite, and they say, you know, if they want us in NATO, yes, we will consider it because we are super strong and we're the biggest military, so they should want us. But when it comes to Europe and the economic prosperity and the way of life, you know, it's a cultural thing. Life without corruption. Yeah, it's an idealism that is important, and please keep the idealism. We had the same idealism, apparently, one generation before me. I mean, when entering the EU, like, you know, the holy Western Europe, everything is all right there. And then you join the club and it's like, oh, that's so messy, you know. But yeah, you know, believe it when you see it, that's fine. What is important? Nothing has changed, and this will happen, and it will take time, and it will be frustrating, but it's about the single most important thing for the Ukrainian representatives now, and it's expectations management. Now, this has failed spectacularly on behalf of the West so many times. Now, at least we will not be saying collective West, we will be saying Europe and America. Because it's such a long thing, collective West, you know, whatever that means. But in 2004, Orange Revolution, European path. Complete failure of expectations. In 2009, clear victory of a pro-Russian president. Now, this will not happen again, but what might happen is victory of people, electoral victory of people who are so frustrated with Europe that they will be super against Russia, anti-Russian, but also anti-European and anti-West. That's quite possible. So we have to play this, and we want Ukraine in, and this is happening. So, of course, let me say one last thing. This is happening on a normative level, and that's what the people of Ukraine want to hear, by the way. They want to hear the normative things. Yeah, you're part of our family. I understand. That's fine. What is, though, in my mind, at least at the same level of importance, is that we have the tools to rebuild Ukraine through the instruments that we have created, such as Ukraine Facility, all these guarantees and loans and the technical stuff I was talking about, but we don't put money in it. So we can do it, but we're not doing it yet. We have a Ukraine Facility as an instrument, it's a European Commission instrument that can rebuild the whole country. If there's like, I don't know, 500 billion euro maybe, that would do it. We have 8 billion in it, 2 orders of magnitude of difference. And there is no consensus on it. And there will be no consensus for the future. It will depend on Germany leaving the policy of, it's actually a constitutional policy that will need to be changed, of going into the debt with their budgeting philosophy. The moment the debt break, is alleviated or over, there will be enough money in Europe, just by Germany alone, to provide enough finances for all these technical financial instruments so that the reconstruction of Ukraine can be done with European money. We have the instruments, we don't have the money in it yet.
Thank you very much. And so who else?
Hello.
Okay.
So my question will be about the security perspectives in Europe. My name is Bahdan. I'm a Ukrainian student at AAU, one of the 19 scholarship students, and I'm really glad and thank you for. I'd like to thank AAU for this opportunity, and thank you for organizing this debate. It's very nice to hear your analytics. My question is, we've been discussing how Ukraine stops Russian aggression and tries to prevent its imperialistic motives to spread to other countries in Europe, and we all see that there is a huge war has been happening for 3 years, and everyone is talking about how it's important to support Ukraine and support it militarily and financially. But my question is that this war that's been happening, it's not that far, and doesn't that ring a bell that there should be some changes in Europe in terms of its military capabilities? We've discussed it partially. There was some discussion about Germany and the changes that are taking place right now, and the possibilities of militarizing it. But there are other countries in Europe, and the question is, my question to you is, what is the future perspective of militarizing Europe? Because it looks like there is a real threat that has to be dealt with. Yeah, thank you.
So who wants to respond? Petr?
I will try. The percentage of military industry and military strength in terms of soldiers of EU or Europe would increase by absorbing Ukraine officially, immediately, by lifting all obstacles, because all problems Ukraine has will be solved much quicker when it is within, inside EU. There are many areas which are now discussed between EU and Ukraine, which Ukraine must fulfill its homeworks, etc., concerning harmonization of law and similar things. But all this can be done inside. Once tomorrow is Ukraine inside EU, the EU law is above Ukraine law. This is the basic principle. So it will push anyway Ukraine to harmonizing its law. So Ukraine should go immediately inside. This is the answer. Ukraine is the solution. Ukraine is not the problem. Ukraine is the solution, and thanks to this, even through Americans, we realized that. And as was mentioned by Mr. Macháček, that we should ask Poland why Poland does not want Ukraine in. It's not true. The percentage of people wanting Ukraine inside in Poland is higher than in the Czech Republic. We cannot look at the Polish farmers. We cannot decide, the Polish farmers cannot decide about the Ukrainian accession. Just imagine this absurdity if German farmers or Austrian farmers would be deciding about the Czechia accession into EU. It would never happen. It must be always somebody who is not in conflict of interest. So it must be decided on a higher level, taking into account all security things, as you mentioned. Like Trump is not USA, Polish farmers are not Poland. So this is maybe my answer.
I would like to also tell you that there is a lot of happening within European Union countries. So we, in Confederation of Czech Industry, we allied with Baltics, Nordics, Poland, and we created Northeast Flank, and we would like to collaborate with our governments, but also within our countries as industries, really to speed up defense project, resilience project, and help new government in Germany also to be strong. So a lot of happening is here, and we hope we will be successful.
Thank you.
This is also important for the context. So we're discussing about who's now with whom. I mean, the United States, yes, they are not doing the pep talk anymore, like in the past 20 years. This is not a pep talk. This is like, yeah, the moment has come. But it's not like we're leaving Europe. We still do have major economic interests here. But this will not anymore be about your dependency on us. This is about, finding where the partnership is equal and where it interests us. And we will maybe find something. But we're not your big brother anymore. Forget it. This is not the mama house you've been used to for the past 60 years. Yes. That's over. Think of us as partners. We can go in the house, maybe out. Depends on you, on both of us. But it's not only about the transatlantic bond. It's not the whole world being isolating Russia. It has not been the case. But what has been happening is there was a particular coalition of the willing, not in the military sense, but in the assistance sense. We have countries like Taiwan, Japan, South Korea, and many others with whom we have been practically working as the Czech government and delivering assistance to Ukraine, to Ukrainians in different regions. Like the projects with the Taiwanese government. We brought just last year drinking water to 130,000 people in the Dnipropetrovsk region. We brought hospital care for like 80,000 people. And this was based on a concrete trilateral partnership. Czechia, Taiwan, Ukraine. And in this manner, we have been precisely delivering the weapons, the ammunition, and everything. And this is how it could be also in the future. There could be even projects with the Americans. It's not like, the UN voting look different, but it's not like they are completely out of our political orbit. So this is important just to realize that it's not the end of the world. We can do plenty by ourselves, and in many areas we will just conjuncture.
Just 2 sentences. So for 60 or 70 years, so we really relied on the US and its defense power just to defend us. And it is not possible and it is not sustainable to be wealthy, to have such standard of living as we do have, to be free and with just free move within the territory, and not to be able to defend yourself. And so there is also the reaction on this wave of immigration to Europe. Yeah, so we should be just responsible for our defense and fully responsible. And US just gave us green light for doing it.
Okay, it makes sense certainly, but the question is like what happens in between when we are ready, right? Like that. With respect to Ukraine at this moment, any offensive or defensive operations are dependent on US intelligence. So if it is not provided, it's going to be a disaster. So we have a gentleman in a fourth row with a question, and it should be the last question, I'm worried, because...
Thank you. My name is Daniel Naumov. I'm an intern for AMO, Association for Foreign Affairs. And I have one question and one maybe note. Let me start with a note that you're talking that Poland will not want for Ukraine to accede to EU because of concerns for its agricultural sector. So we know that this is an issue. Maybe Europe, other European countries could start negotiating with Poland to help speed up this accession by offering some kind of concessions to Polish agricultural sector or to Poland itself. It wouldn't be fair, but we're talking about basically saving lives, making Europe stronger and making Ukraine become a European country faster. So maybe it's not fair, but it's efficient. I think this should be discussed on a high level between governments. And my question is to Mr. Kopečný. You're saying that Europe has to stand by its own because US is done with Europe. But so was the case in 2016 when Trump first came to power. He became very nationalistic and ready to cast aside every ally if it means some kind of clear absolute profit for the United States. So United States are quite predictable because this pendulum will swing again into the other direction in 4, maybe 8 years. And it will again become very profitable for European governments, businesses to deal with the US. It will be a good partner, also in defensive sector. So my question is, how would you sell this idea of independent Europe, which is constantly independent, and to the future governments of Europe? Because in several years there will be more elections, there will be more governments, they will be looking to support themselves through their electoral, and they will be looking for this clearly the most beneficial contracts, which will be the US.
I think, okay, so Mr. Kopečný.
I think that they will, I mean, the US companies and administration will not be looking for the contracts for 8 years. There's going to be plenty of contracts, even more than before, I believe. The tariffs will help. But in general, it's like listening to what the people are actually telling you. You know, like in 2011, the Secretary of Defense of the United States said in some NATO meeting, you know, guys, this is still the pep talk, but there will come a generation of leaders in the US government who will not have the nostalgia we do have for the old continent. And this is what is happening. It's like watching the Russian television where they constantly talk about, you know, throwing nuclear weapons on Prague, Paris, Berlin, talking about the renewal of the empire, going to Berlin, you know, to get them in line. And saying, oh, maybe they're, oh, I mean, I'm not saying that this is what you're saying, but it could be like, yeah, maybe there will come a new generation of leaders in the Kremlin or in the Russia 1 television where they will not be doing this. But this is what's happening now. And at least for the next 4 years, this is what will be even more and more underlined and accentuated by the actions. Also, I will give you the most important difference between the first Trump administration and the second one. It's the preparedness. First, Trump was himself and the team was surprised that they won. They were so unprepared and they were literally stopped by the deep state or whatever they're calling deep state. Now they started with uprooting deep state. Now they published a strategy of what they will do in the first 180 days and the next years. 2 years ago, look at heritagefoundation.org. It's all there. We were reading it 2 years ago, like my circles. And we're like, yeah, this is too much, right? It's like they're pushing it so that they could go back. No, it got into a spiral and it's even more than it's in the book. It's like a few hundred pages, but if you're interested in whatever health, it's a couple of dozens of pages. If you're interested in economy, defense, there are chapters, what they will do with the world order. And they are doing it day by day. They are uprooting the administration system, a culture that has been going from one administration to another for decades. And they are done with it. So that's why I compare what's happening in Washington in the past few weeks to the French Revolution, except for guillotine, they are delivering fire notes. So yeah, you're getting fired, you're not under guillotine. That's fine, I mean, it's very humane. But but it's the end of the old regime. And everything, it's not like Biden was the old regime. Everything before was the old regime. The deep state, the bureaucracy was the old regime. And now they are ending it. Yes, I mean, I want to be hopeful, but when there are lives and my security and the security of my family on the line, I will look for the rainbow unicorn scenario with, you know, a book in the shelf, and I will prepare a large scenario, book full of scenarios for the worst, the second worst, the worst case that could happen. And it's better, I mean, it's not complete independence or autarky. It's like, yeah, fine. We just know that there could come a moment where we don't want to be helpless. And I'm prepared, like Ukrainians were, on the 24th of February 22.
Thank you very much. And one little remark like that, there's gonna be a museum of deep state. Some of you heard about it, like in an old FBI building, there will be a museum of deep state. So I'm looking forward to see it. Okay, so I would like to thank all the panelists, Petr Krogman, Tomáš Kopečný, Daryna Semergei, and Jiří Schwarz, who was so nice to come on behalf of Ukrainian ambassador, who once again apologizes, but something urgent came up. I would like to thank our partners and Anglo-American University as such for co-organizing this with Strategeo. I would like to thank Confederation of Czech Industries and IBM which is represented here not only by Milena Javorková, but she arranged it. And and I would also like to thank my team in Strategeo. And there are going to be some refreshments outside, provided, by the way, by the Confederation of Industries and IBM. So thanks again. As we should say, Slava Ukraini.